Hello friends, Michael Shainblum here, and welcome to a brand new landscape photography video. This is my first video of the year, and I thought it would be the perfect way to start by talking about my top 10 favorite photographs that I took last year. I'm going to talk about the different settings and techniques that I used for each of these images, some of the challenges and learning experiences that came along the way. You'll also see some brand new images that I haven't released yet because they're part of vlogs that I plan on putting out this year on the channel. So you'll get to see a sneak peek of the brand new adventures and some of the stuff coming your way. With that, let's dive in, and our first image was taken at Yosemite National Park. Alright, so here's my first image of Bridal Veil Falls with this beautiful rainbow at the base. It was one of my favorite moments from my Yosemite trip, and this trip was already very special because it was the most water I've ever seen in the park. They had a crazy snowpack during the year. That snow all melted and then created thousands of brand new waterfalls, and then the waterfalls that were already there had so much power. It was really spectacular to witness. So the experience itself was already worth it, even if I didn't get a shot. But this one right here was a very spontaneous image. I was trying to photograph a storm coming in, and then I wanted to wait until the storm passed, see if the sun would come out, and then create a rainbow over Half Dome. Now, funny enough, I did get that rainbow over Half Dome shot later on, which is right here. But the reason I chose this one was because it was very unexpected. I was trying to photograph that other thing, and I was just kind of sitting there. I thought about packing up the bag, and instead I stuck around, waited. Sure enough, at the corner of my eye, I start to see this rainbow spectrum appear on the waterfall. It would have been so easy to just pack up the bags and leave, but really sticking it out, spending more time there, it really gave me the opportunity to shoot this photograph. Now, technique-wise, this was pretty simple. I'm using the 100-400 lens, and then I'm shooting a very short shutter speed to get all that texture of the water. And so here is image number 2, also taken in Yosemite National Park. It's definitely not as extravagant as some of the rainbow stuff I got in the park, but there's something about the mood here, the darkness. It's almost like a fairy tale scene, and I really tried to accentuate that in the post-processing with some dodging and burning. But this was shot during some pretty rainy conditions, so I was pretty much just sitting out there in the rain, waiting for the right moments, and using the lens blower to get all the rain spots off of the lens. So this image is a great example of, not relying so much on perfect conditions to get great images. I mean, as landscape photographers, we do like the partial cloud look with some beautiful sun glow piercing through, but sometimes you don't get handed that. Sometimes you're just gonna have to sit through a rainstorm. I will say, oftentimes some of my favorite work comes from those less than ideal conditions. But yeah, this one was shot handheld with the telephoto lens, so I'm putting image stabilization on, I'm using a very high shutter speed, bumped my ISO a bit. Everything was out in infinity, so I didn't even have to worry about the f-stop. I could have done a long exposure of this, but there was something about the texture of the fog that I really wanted to show here. All right, moving on, I wanted to switch it up and show you something completely different. So earlier in the year, I talked a lot about growth as a landscape photographer. A lot of that came down to challenging myself and trying to do things different than what I've done before, kind of think outside the box and get out of my comfort zone. And during that video, I shot this photograph right here of these beautiful coastal textures that I feel like look a bit like dragons, which if you followed the channel for a while, I tend to find dragons in a lot of different things. I shot one in Iceland, and I shot one in the Southwest with the storms. I like to find dragons. I think I'm just trying to find dragons in different environments. But this one specifically I thought was really cool. So for this image, technique-wise, I'm just using my wide-angle lens, and I'm shooting f/16 to make sure everything is nice and sharp. With some of these shots, I did focus stack, but this one specifically, I was far enough away where I didn't need to focus stack it. This is a beach that I've gone to for many, many years, usually focused on wide-angle perspectives. This time I decided I just wanted to do something completely different, and I definitely came away with some images that I was really proud of. So if you are one of those people who maybe are feeling a little stuck with your work, I recommend checking out this video. It talks about some of those challenges and maybe how to overcome them. All right, so image number 4 takes us somewhere brand new, and this is the swamps of Texas and Louisiana, where I met up with Gavin, Amanda, and my friend Andrew. So you're going to see some pretty fun videos on my channel and on Gavin's channel from that adventure. I'm really excited to share some of it. So this was shot from a kayak of the beautiful Spanish moss being lit up by the sun. It's easy to get a good photograph in these swampy areas. It's really challenging to get a great photograph though. That's what I realized. There's a lot of technical challenges because when you are in the canoe or kayak, you're moving, you're trying to get as much light into the camera as possible. This one was nice because the sun was still pretty high in the sky. I did have a lot of light to work with, so I didn't really need to like bump the ISO too high or anything like that. But when you're in the kayak, you'll find a composition that you like, and then you get the camera ready and you start to take the pictures. The problem is, especially when you're on the telephoto lens, you start to drift away from the composition, and then you have to paddle back and like take a bunch more shots, and it's this constant like back and forth. But I think that the whole process made it way more fun. So yeah, a lot to look forward to in those videos, and yeah, this one just ended up being one of my favorites. All right, image number 5 is a bit strange. So this one isn't really a landscape photograph. It's more of a cityscape abstract shot. I had the opportunity to go to New York City. I decided to strap my GoPro onto my chest, which was a little awkward to do, but I pretty much walked around the city and did a POV vlog. I'm pretty excited to share that on the channel. I'm still trying to work out how to edit that one. Here's a shot that I took right in the heart of Times Square with the reflections of those neon billboards, and as those lights would shift, all these different colors would transform the shot. I had a lot of fun playing around with this. I had no idea if this would look interesting or not while I was taking it. It's just a very odd photograph. This was really getting out of my comfort zone. I shot a lot of abstract photography in the city, as well as some time lapses, and the different variations here of these puddles was really fun. Here's one that almost looks like it could be like water on the sand of a beach or something, but yeah, it's just some sort of advertisement in the reflection of this puddle. Image number 6 was also a very special image because we had this beautiful lupin bloom in the Eastern Sierras, and it was amazing to witness. I've always wanted to capture this, so it was one of those kind of bucket list situations for me. The only challenge about capturing these lupin was it was so windy every single day. We didn't get a single day that it was still, so I couldn't do any extreme focus stacking. For most of my images, and I talk about this in the video, it's about how to get images sharp in the wind, wildflowers sharp in the wind. It's one of the toughest and most annoying things. I talk a lot about hyperfocal distance, focusing in on the right spot, and then using f16 and f18 to make sure everything is sharp. I also had to bump my ISO and keep my shutter speed high enough to where those little gusts of wind wouldn't blur the flowers in the shot. I wanted to make sure everything was as sharp as I could possibly make it. I took a bunch of lupin pictures in different areas and with different conditions. I think this one with the purple clouds ended up being my favorite here. All right, so image number 7 takes us to the Dolomites. I was there with my friend Marco Grazzi teaching a workshop, and we got some incredible conditions of the mountain peaks here with the fog flowing through the scene. I loved how you had that really warm, glowy fog down below, balanced out with some of these rock formations in the foreground. I felt like the blue in the sky matched with the warmth of the fog was just a perfect color contrast here. So this one's just a simple wide-angle perspective scene. I'm not doing anything special here. I'm just using my 16 to 35, making sure to get pretty wide and get everything nice, sharp, and in focus. I took a bunch of images in the Dolomites this morning and during different outings that you'll see soon. This one just was a really special moment to witness. And Image number 8 takes us to Ireland, specifically Malin Head with my friend Bernard. This was the last video that I put out. This was a location I've been wanting to photograph for many, many years, and I cannot believe we got these conditions there. We were very, very lucky. I spent a lot of time here just kind of fine-tuning the composition. I pretty much had my camera locked down at this spot for almost the entirety of sunset, just seeing how that light progressed and changed. This one I think ended up being my favorite, with these light rays coming through and that warm glow that's just kind of basking through the landscape. For this one, I was just waiting for the right moment for those waves to crash against the rock formations, and then I did an exposure blend so that I could get that detail for the sun and the detail for the shadows in the rocks. So I was in Ireland with Nigel, Mads, and Darren, and we did the 400mm challenge, which was kind of a weird, funny video that we made, where we were restricted to 1 hour, and we had to shoot everything at 400mm, and we were also shooting just broad midday light. During that video, I was really flustered. I was having a really rough time if you watched it. Towards the end, I ended up finding this beautiful wave formation. Looking back on this video and this challenge, I think I was really hard on myself, because this image ended up being one of my favorites of the whole trip, and it was just taken within that hour. But this photograph specifically, again, just 100 to 400 lens, obviously at 400mm, and I'm shooting a very, very fast shutter speed to get all that texture. So simple technique, very similar to some of the previous images that you saw. And now my final image, which was also taken in Ireland. This is definitely one that's not just my favorite of the year, but also one of my favorites that I've ever captured, especially on the coast. It kind of looks like Godzilla versus Ghidorah. It was all about just waiting for the right moment, capturing the right wave formation. I knew I wanted something like this, where you had the rock formation and then the wave would somehow accentuate or mimic the rock formation. And luckily with waves, oftentimes they do resemble monsters or creatures, so I had an idea that maybe something like this could be captured. This image was using my 100 to 400 lens to really just isolate this section, and I'm using a very high shutter speed to make sure I'm getting all the texture of the water. One of the constant challenges of Ireland was just all the wind. I mean, everywhere we went, it was giant gusts of wind. I think it made it a little tough to focus on the photography sometimes, so I was constantly looking for areas I could shield myself from the wind, and luckily I found a rock where I could stand behind it and shoot these images and not just, be getting hit by like 50, 60 mile per hour gusts. Now, speaking of wave photography, if you want to learn more, I'm actually teaching a workshop with my friend Kenny on the Oregon coast, where we're going to be chasing big waves and shooting a lot of really cool coastal scenes. So if you want to learn more about that workshop, I'm going to leave a link in the description for it. I think my biggest takeaway with the photography in 2023 was really just getting out of my comfort zone, having a little bit of fun, and trying something new, whether it was going to work or not. It kind of goes back to when I first started taking photographs. I don't know if you were also this way, but I remember when I first picked up a camera, I just went around and took pictures of stuff. I didn't have any, full idea of what I wanted. And I think this year I wanted to bring back some of that nostalgia of like picking up a camera for the first time and the joy that you have of just being out experimenting with photography. I think breaking away from my comfort zone in a lot of situations really helped me to think more creatively and come up with more interesting shots. So if you are stuck in that mindset and you maybe do feel a bit stagnant, my biggest advice would be to just try something new. It really doesn't matter what it is. It could be a completely different genre of photography, or just a different subject matter that maybe you don't usually photograph within landscape photography. And then the second thing, in addition to getting outside your comfort zone, is really just spending the extra time in the landscape, because it's going to give you that extra time to play around and have fun and see what happens, instead of just dedicating this specific finite amount of time for taking pictures of, whatever, sunset, sunrise, Milky Way. Just spend a little bit more time during the day and explore and have some fun with it, because you never know what you can capture in conditions that maybe seem less ideal. If you want to learn more about how I post-process my images and take them, links in the description for my workshops. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.